For 1,375 days, Serena Williams was gone from professional tennis. 4 years of silence, 4 years of questions, 4 years of wondering whether the greatest champion the sport had ever seen had played her final match. Then, in June 2026, the impossible happened. At 44 years old, Serena Williams announced her return to Wimbledon. The tennis world didn't just react, it stopped. Because this wasn't a farewell tour, it wasn't a publicity stunt, it was a direct challenge to a new generation that believed her era was over. And what happened next stunned the entire sport. But we need to have a very honest, very unfiltered conversation about what happens when a legend of this magnitude steps back into the arena. This was never going to be a quiet, ceremonial walk down memory lane. Serena Williams does not do nostalgia tours. She does not show up for a polite round of applause and a wave to the crowd. She came back to win. And the moment she stepped back onto the grass, she brought the entire weight of her standard, her history, and her absolute refusal to accept mediocrity right along with her. What we witnessed over the course of those turbulent weeks was a masterclass in the psychological reality of elite sports, a story of generational collision, public misunderstanding, and an eventual passing of the torch that left everyone who actually understands this game completely stunned. To truly comprehend the gravity of what just unfolded, we have to trace the steps of this comeback from the very first match. Serena's return did not start under the bright lights of center court. It began with a deliberate, quiet attempt to shake off nearly 4 years of competitive rust. First, she took the court at Queen's Club in doubles alongside a 19-year-old rising star Victoria Mboko. Then she moved to Berlin, partnering with Karolina Muchova. 2 doubles matches, 2 opportunities to feel the grass under her feet, 2 chances to see if the competitive fire still burned. She walked away from those warm-up events with a modest 1-1 record, capturing her opening match with Mboko before an unfortunate injury to the young Canadian cut their tournament short. Then came Sunday, June 21st, 2026. The All England club dropped an announcement that sent shockwaves through the sporting landscape. Serena Williams had been awarded the final women's singles wildcard for Wimbledon. The tournament's official channels captured the sheer magnitude of the moment with a simple 4-word warning: this is not a drill. The WTA Tour immediately followed suit, posing a rhetorical question to the entire internet. Name a more iconic return. We'll wait. Nobody could. At 44 years old, Serena was set to play both singles and doubles at the most prestigious tournament in the world. She was sitting precisely 2 victories away from reaching the historic 100-win mark at Wimbledon, a milestone she had previously only reached on the hard courts of the U.S. Open, where her last Grand Slam singles match had been played back in 2022 against Anett Kontaveit. But this is where the fairy tale script of a triumphant family reunion ran directly into a scheduling conflict. Serena was not just returning for the singles draw. She was planning to reunite with her sister Venus for a doubles campaign on the hallowed grass of Wimbledon. It was supposed to be their first time sharing a court as a team in nearly 4 years, a reunion of a partnership that had secured 14 Grand Slam doubles titles. The media was already preparing the tribute packages. The fans were already buying the tickets. It was a narrative too perfect for Hollywood to ignore. There was just one massive, awkward problem. Venus Williams had already committed to playing doubles the week before Wimbledon at the Bad Homburg Open, and her partner was not her sister. It was a 21-year-old rising sensation from the Philippines named Alex Eala. The tennis world was instantly obsessed. The partnership between the 46-year-old American legend and the 21-year-old Filipina star felt almost too fascinating to be real. On one side, you had Venus Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam singles champion and a monument of the sport. On the other hand, you had a young player who had just captured the attention of the globe by stunning world number 2 Elena Rybakina and world number 8 Elina Svitolina in Berlin. The pairing was a cultural event. Media outlets immediately framed it as a dream come true for Eala, a moment where a young athlete was standing side by side with the very idol she had grown up watching on television. But let us look past the sentimentality and look at the athletic reality. Both players desperately needed this partnership. Eala was coming off a bruising, disappointing first-round exit in singles at Bad Homburg, where she had been dismissed in straight sets by Belgium's Elise Mertens. Venus, likewise, had dropped her opening singles match to Aryna Camelia Begu. They were two players searching for rhythm, searching for grass court transition, and they saw the doubles draw as the perfect laboratory to find their game before the stakes got even higher. And when they first stepped onto the court on Wednesday, June 24th, 2026, the chemistry looked real. The Eala-Venus tandem put on an absolute clinic in the opening round. They raced out to a commanding 4-0 lead, completely blindsiding their opponents and taking the first set 6-3 in a mere 30 minutes. The second set forced them to show their competitive teeth. The match remained locked on serve through the first 6 games before the veteran-youth duo found a crucial break of serve. Even when their opponents broke back to level the set at 4-4, Eala and Venus, ranked 151st and 120th in doubles respectively, showed the kind of poise that wins tournaments. They fought through a grueling deuce battle in the 9th game, secured the break, and served out the match for a 6-3, 6-4 victory. In just 1 hour and 10 minutes, they had answered their first test. But as the applause echoed through the stadium, an incredibly tense reality was hovering over the entire scene. Serena Williams was watching. She was preparing for her own historic comeback, and the sister she had shared a lifetime of glory with was currently finding a rhythm with a 21-year-old newcomer. The Bad Homburg run was not just an exhibition, it was a high-stakes rehearsal, and every single error was being catalogued by the most demanding eye in the sport. The true test of the Eala-Venus partnership arrived in the quarterfinals against the second-seeded team of Teresa Mihalkova and Olivia Nichols. This was not a makeshift pairing. The Slovak-British duo was in devastating form, having recently claimed the WTA 500 HSBC championships and reached the final in Abu Dhabi. They had been playing together since 2024. They possessed the kind of nonverbal communication and physical synchronicity that only comes from years of shared battle. The match was an absolute war of attrition from the very first point. Eala and Venus, both still carrying the mental fatigue of their early singles departures, found themselves pushed to the absolute limit, and then in the heat of a deciding third set, it happened. A single costly error. The details of the moment would be debated by fans for days, some claiming it was a split-second miscommunication at the net, others blaming an over-aggressive forehand at match point. But the microscopic details did not matter. What mattered was the outcome. The mistake was made, the momentum shifted, and the dream run in Bad Homburg came to a sudden, heartbreaking end in a tight 3-set defeat. For Venus, it was a frustrating end to her warm-up. For Eala, it was a devastating learning experience cut short. But the real explosion was yet to come. When Serena Williams saw her sister's tournament end on the back of that decisive error, she did not offer a polite, generic message of consolation. She reacted. And she did it in a way that left the entire tennis community absolutely speechless. Analysts had already been scratching their heads, publicly questioning why Serena had not chosen to play doubles with Venus in Queens or Berlin if their Wimbledon reunion was the ultimate goal. They wondered why Venus had committed to Eala just days before the grass court Grand Slam. Serena did not address the logistics. Instead, she delivered a public comment that was so sharp, so layered with historical irony, that it completely reframed the conversation. Reflecting on her own decision to play with Karolina Muchova in Berlin, Serena laughed and remarked that Czech players had given her nothing but trouble throughout her career, adding, "If you can't beat them, join them." On its face, it appeared to be a lighthearted self-deprecation. But if you actually understand the psychology of a 23-time Grand Slam champion, you know there is no such thing as a casual comment. Serena was weaponizing her own history of struggle to deliver a brutal, necessary truth. She was acknowledging that failure, mistakes, and formidable opponents are an inevitable reality of professional tennis. She was telling a 21-year-old rising star that the measure of an athlete is not whether they make a mistake under pressure, but how they internalize that mistake and apply it to their next battle. It was a cold shower of elite perspective. Do not allow a single error to define your potential. But the internet does not do nuance. The internet does not understand the difference between elite criticism and a personal attack. Within minutes of Serena's comments going public, social media platforms erupted into absolute chaos. The massive, passionate fan base of Alex Eala, who had watched her rise from Manila to the global stage, rushed to defend her. They flooded timelines with outrage, claiming Serena should focus on her own historic comeback instead of publicly analyzing the mistakes of a 21-year-old. They pointed to everything Eala had achieved for Philippine tennis, arguing that she did not deserve to have her moment overshadowed by negativity from a legend. The commentators and analysts split right down the middle. Some saw Serena's words as an unnecessary competitive swipe at a young player who had stepped into the middle of a Williams family reunion. Others, who understood the brutal standards of the tour, defended the comments as a rare, invaluable masterclass. They argued that legends do not coddle the next generation, they challenge them. They pass down wisdom through the medium of high-level critique. The pressure on Eala in that moment was immense. She was a 21-year-old facing the public scrutiny of the greatest player of all time, caught in a media storm that was threatening to swallow her singles and doubles preparations. Everyone was waiting for her to defend herself. Everyone was waiting for the defensive, quote, the diplomatic avoidance, or the emotional reaction. Instead, Eala sat down at her press conference and delivered a response that left her loudest critics completely silent. With a level of grace and poise that seemed entirely impossible for someone her age, Eala looked at the reporters and did something extraordinary. She thanked Serena Williams. "Serena Williams is one of the greatest players to ever live," Eala said, her voice steady. "Everything she said, I took as a lesson. She's been through things I can't even imagine. If she sees something in my game that needs work, I'm grateful she shared it. Let that sink in." Instead of hiding behind a public relations statement, instead of letting her fans wage a proxy war on her behalf, Eala stepped up to the microphone and claimed her education. She did not run from the critique. She embraced it. She understood that when the greatest champion in the history of your sport speaks about your game, you do not complain about the tone. You write down the notes. She then addressed the scheduling controversy that had started the entire conversation, speaking of her time with Venus with profound gratitude. "Playing with Venus was a dream come true," she said. "I grew up watching her and Serena. To share a court with her, even for one tournament, was something I'll never forget. And I hope Serena knows that I have nothing but respect for her and everything she's accomplished. It was a display of emotional intelligence and competitive maturity that you simply do not see from modern athletes." Eala refused to play the victim. She refused to let the media turn a tactical lesson into a personal feud. She showed that she belonged on that stage, not just because of her forehand or her movement, but because of her mind. And that is when the final, most stunning twist of this entire saga occurred. Serena Williams was watching that press conference. She saw the response of the 21-year-old she had challenged. And in a moment that has already been shared millions of times across the globe, Serena spoke once more. "She's a special player," Serena said, a genuine smile breaking across her face. "I've been watching her. Everyone has. When she beat Rybakina and Svitolina in Berlin, I was paying attention. The way she moves, the way she fights, she reminds me of someone. She reminds me of me." The room erupted, the cameras flashed. The journalists who had spent days trying to manufacture a bitter generational war were left scrambling to rewrite their headlines. Serena Williams, the most protective guardian of her own legacy, had just compared Eala to herself. That is not a compliment you hand out to be polite. That is not a generic piece of praise designed to quiet down a public relations issue. That is an endorsement that carries the weight of history. Serena was looking at a young woman from the Philippines and recognizing the exact same fire, the exact same defiance, and the exact same competitive isolation that she had carried throughout her own legendary career. "I know what it's like to have a nation on your shoulders," Serena continued, delivering a quote that felt less like an interview and more like a coronation. "I know what it's like to be doubted, to be counted out, to have people tell you that you can't do it. And I know what it's like to prove them all wrong. She's on that path, and if she keeps going, she's going to be unstoppable." She then addressed the central mystery of the Bad Homburg partnership, explaining exactly why Venus had taken the court with Eala in the first place. "People ask why Venus played with her instead of me. The answer is simple. She needed someone who was ready, someone who was hungry, and Alex is hungry. She's hungry in a way that reminds me of myself at 21. This is where the entire narrative of conflict completely fell apart. What the public had tried to frame as a petty territorial dispute between a returning queen and an incoming challenger was actually the birth of a profound, high-level mentorship. Serena had challenged Eala to see if the young player had the mental fortitude to handle the pressure of the elite standard. And when Eala stood tall, when she responded with respect, focus, and competitive hunger, Serena did not just accept her, she validated her. As we stand on the eve of Wimbledon 2026, the landscape of the sport looks entirely different than it did just a few weeks ago. The Williams sisters are preparing to walk out onto the hallowed grass together, chasing their 15th Grand Slam doubles title, defying time itself in a pursuit of historic greatness. Serena is chasing her 100th match win at the All England Club, writing what could be the final, most audacious chapter of her singles career. And Eala steps onto that same grass as the first Filipina seed in Grand Slam history, carrying the hopes of an entire nation on her shoulders, but carrying something else as well: the public, unyielding endorsement of the greatest player of all time. This story was never about one missed shot in a doubles match in Bad Homburg. It was never about a scheduling mix-up or a social media debate. It was about the grueling, beautiful process of elite transition. It was about a legend looking at the future of the sport, testing its resolve, and declaring that it is ready. The future of tennis is no longer a distant projection. It is here, it is hungry, and it has been verified by the Queen herself. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Was this the spark of an intense future rivalry, or are we looking at the beginning of an iconic mentorship that will shape the next decade of tennis? Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, because this grass court season is just getting started and the drama is only going to get deeper.